The non-existent night, but the most clearly ours story. Do you think words like knowledge and cultivation sound like distant and difficult topics? Do you have a bias that books are thick and boring, something only for refined people? No. Books are, in fact, the most familiar companions for everyone, and the most fascinating tools to understand and question our lives. Knowledge does not begin with memorization, but with questioning. Cultivation is not about knowing grand things, but about developing new perspectives to view the world. Today, I would like to introduce a special book for those of you who might think like that. It's a novel by the great Italian writer Italo Calvino, titled The Non-Existent Night. The title itself is striking. A night who does not exist, what kind of story is this? This book may seem easy and fun to read, like a children's fairy tale, but within it, there are profound questions about life that we should ask ourselves at least once in our lives. Through this article, I would like to share the content of the book, and the wisdom and insight we can gain from it. Please don't feel it's difficult. Just listen to the story I'm telling and feel any seeds of questions that might be planted in your heart. 1. Shouting existence from an empty armor invitation to the world of the non-existent night. Italo Calvino's The Non-Existent Night may appear on the surface as a fantasy novel set in the Middle Ages, but its content is deeply modern and philosophical. The story begins in the army of Charlemagne. As Charlemagne inspects his knights before battle, he is astonished by a knight's perfect armor, only to discover the shocking truth: there is no one inside. This knight is the protagonist of the book, Agololfo. Agololfo is a being without a physical body. He proves his existence solely by his will, discipline, and existential determination. By day and by night, he cleans his armor, sharpens his sword, perfectly follows commands, and maintains impeccable manners. He is the epitome of perfectionism and shows obsessive compulsions toward form and order. His existence depends entirely on his firm will to believe in his own existence and to be recognized by others. He has no flaws at all. However, in Charlemagne's army, there is another character, Gergelu, who stands in sharp contrast to Agololfo. Gergelu is an existence that is too real. He has no consciousness of who he is or where he belongs. He cannot distinguish between a tree, an animal, a human being, and identifies everything with himself, embodying pure chaos. Whereas Agololfo represents the extreme of form, Gergelu illustrates the extreme of content. The story becomes complicated when the truth behind an incident in Agololfo's past is revealed. This incident was a heroic tale where he was believed to have rescued the daughter of the Scottish king, Princess Sophronia, from pirates. However, there is suspicion that it was actually another knight who saved the princess. As a result, Agololfo faces the risk of losing his title of knighthood and embarks on a journey to find the real Sophronia princess to prove his existence. This adventure is entangled with various characters. Bradamante, a damsel who obsessively loves and follows Agololfo. Rambaldo, a knight in love with Bradamante. And Torrismondo, a young knight seeking the true meaning of existence. Each with their own desires and existential conflicts, they enrich the story. The narrative is presented from the perspective of Sister Theodora, who hides in a monastery and writes. Sometimes with sharp insight, sometimes with human compassion, she recounts this peculiar world. Thus, The Non-Existent Night may appear as a medieval knight's adventure, but it raises profound philosophical questions about existence and non-existence, form and content, will and instinct, and the search for identity. 2. Questioning the meaning of existence. Questions raised by the empty armor. Now is the time to consider what questions we can ask ourselves and our society through this empty armor. The first and most powerful implication this book gives is the question, what is existence? 2.1. Existence without flesh. What makes us exist? Agololfo has no physical body. He lives with the strong will to believe that he exists and the desire to be recognized by others. At this point, we ask ourselves what truly makes us exist. Can we say we exist merely because we breathe and move? We live fulfilling many roles: employee, parent, student, professional, etc., and sometimes mistakenly believe these labels are all we are. We strive to be the perfect worker, the ideal parent, just like Agololfo, who strictly adheres to the form and discipline of being a knight. However, behind these roles and labels, what is the real me? Is there any empty space in us like Agololfo? This book constantly questions whether we truly exist. Is our existence tied to our body, or to our will, thoughts, actions, and relationships with others? Sometimes our body is here, but our mind is elsewhere, or we feel we are just living aimlessly. In those times, we might deeply empathize with Agololfo shouting existence from within an empty armor. Are we truly conscious of ourselves and living actively, enough to say we exist? 2.2. The paradox of form and content, the other side of perfection. Agololfo is perfection itself in form. He always maintains the correct posture, uses precise language, and follows all rules. His armor is always shining, and his swordsmanship is flawless. However, there is no content within his perfect form. He doesn't feel love, sorrow, or joy, as he lacks emotions entirely. In contrast, Gergely is the embodiment of chaotic content. He feels everything and assimilates with everything, but he has no form to integrate these sensations and experiences. He cannot recognize himself as a subject and is constantly changing. How is our life? We often live confined within the forms society demands. We try to conform to forms like successful life, happy family, and good person, sometimes suppressing our genuine feelings and desires for these forms. If we look superficially perfect but lack genuine satisfaction and joy inside, aren't we like Agololfo, wearing an empty armor? This book reveals the paradox that without either form or content, we cannot become complete beings. Only when perfect form is filled with content does it gain meaning, and only when rich content is expressed through appropriate form does it shine. Perhaps the process of balancing form and content within ourselves is the path to becoming a genuine being. 2.3. The Journey of Identity. Who am I? Another character in the book, Torresmondo, is a young knight searching for the secret of his birth. He wants to know where his existence originates and what kind of being he truly is. This fundamental question, who am I, is something we repeatedly face in our lives. From the moment we are born, we are given identity as someone's child, and in school, we are labeled as students. In society, we perform roles as specific professionals. However, apart from these identities given from the outside, what truly defines us? Is it our thoughts, our actions, and our values that we choose, which collectively shape us as unique individuals? Torresmondo's journey is ultimately the process of finding his own identity. This book gently whispers to us that we must listen to our inner voice to discover our true self, not being trapped by others' expectations or social roles. 3. Questions for our lives. The suffering and reflection of modern people. The Non-Existent Knight does not merely remain a story of medieval knights. It deeply resonates with us living in the 21st century. Calvino uses his imaginative power to portray timeless human struggles and issues of modern society. 3.1. Dehumanization and alienation in modern society. Our modern society, like Agololfo, emphasizes form and efficiency. Corporations require employees to play optimized roles to maximize profit, and individuals often feel like gears in a social machine. We move according to manuals, make decisions based on data, and prioritize logic over emotion, which is considered virtuous. In such an environment, we often feel alienated, as if our individuality is disappearing and only roles remain. We work hard and achieve results, yet sometimes feel an emptiness inside, like an empty armor. If we live without questioning the reason for our existence and just follow what is given, we might become like Agololfo, non-existent even though we have a body. This book constantly makes us think about how to maintain our true self and human values in modern society. 3.2. Will and Discipline and Freedom. Agololfo's existence entirely depends on his will and discipline. He exerts tremendous self-control to maintain his existence. While admirable, it's also pitiable. His perfection is a heavy burden, and he seems to lack true freedom. We impose many disciplines and goals on ourselves. I must diet, I must succeed, I must become a better person, and so on, living amidst countless resolutions and plans. These will and discipline are the essential driving forces for our development and growth. However, sometimes these rules can become chains that restrict our freedom. Have you ever felt the emptiness and hollowness after chasing only goals like Agololfo, only to achieve them? This book asks us, what is our will and discipline heading toward? Is true life and freedom waiting at the end? Or is it merely a meaningless effort to maintain an empty armor? 3.3. The Power of Stories: Creation and Recreation of Existence Through Narratives. This book is structured as Sister Theodora's writing, recounting her experiences. Her stories interpret the actions of the characters and sometimes even create their existence. Through this narrative style, Calvini shows how powerfully stories and narratives define and create our existence. We constantly create our own stories and tell them to others. Our lives are composed of countless stories. I am this kind of person, I experienced this. These stories form our identity and give meaning to our existence. Conversely, a life without stories can become empty. What kind of story are we telling ourselves? Is it a positive, hopeful story or a negative, pessimistic one? This book reminds us that depending on the stories we choose to create and tell, our existence can change. 4. New perspectives from reading. Cultivation is not far away. The reason I recommend this The Non-Existent Night to those who think knowledge and cultivation are distant is as follows. First, it is easy and fun. Calvino unfolds complex philosophical themes in an exciting story like a fairy tale. The knight's adventure, love and betrayal, humorous situations keep the story from being boring. It is easily accessible for those who are new to novels or want to start reading again. Second, it encourages self-reflection. The book does not provide answers. Instead, it prompts readers to ask, why do I believe I exist? What constitutes my identity? Is my life biased toward form or is it full of content? The process of asking these questions is the beginning of genuine knowledge and cultivation. The story acts as a mirror, reflecting our lives back to us. Third, it stimulates imagination. The imaginative idea of a non-existent night infinitely expands our imagination. Through impossible settings in reality, we gain deeper insight into the essence of reality. Imagination is essential for generating new ideas, solving problems, and viewing the world in diverse ways. This book will open the door to such imagination. Fourth, it broadens our understanding of others' lives. Various characters appear in the book, each pondering existence, loving, suffering in their own way. Through their stories, we understand different lifestyles and values in the world and develop the ability to empathize with others' pain. This is an important asset for deeper communication and relationships. Knowledge and cultivation are not exclusive to a few. They bloom from our curiosity about life, an open heart toward the world, and the courage to keep questioning. The Non-Existent Night will encourage such courage and open a window for us to explore aspects of life we have never considered. 5. Filling the empty armor within us. The Non-Existent Night makes us see our reflection in Agololfo, who lives in an empty armor, and discover another aspect of ourselves in Gergelu, who is lost in chaos. Moreover, through the stories of all these beings, it constantly asks us the question, how am I to exist? Reading is not merely reading words. It is a process of dialoguing with the author's thoughts, resonating with the characters, and ultimately communicating with ourselves. Italo Calvino's The Non-Existent Night is an excellent invitation to begin this dialogue. If you are feeling an inexplicable emptiness in your life or questioning who you are and why you live, I highly recommend opening this book. The story of the knight in the empty armor may offer unexpected comfort, new questions, and small clues that help fill the emptiness within us. Knowledge and cultivation are not far away. If you read this article and develop even a tiny curiosity about this book, that itself is the first step toward knowledge and cultivation. Right now, Jump into this peculiar and fascinating story and begin your journey to explore your own existence. This journey will surely enrich and give meaning to your life.